Hey, Justin, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Shannon. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on. Just say hi to everyone listening and let them know who you are.
How's it going? I am Justin Green, a certified financial planner. I founded a financial planning firm, and I'm in the process of co-founding a community for focusing on financial education for business owners, and it's called Intentional Profits. So I'm a just a regular old guy. I like fitness. I like to read. I have a 6-month-old baby. She keeps me very, very busy. But I love business. I love reading about business. I love talking to business owners. But most importantly, I love when they make money and when they keep money, right? Keep what you earn, exactly what you say.
Exactly. What developed your passion in the area of finance and in business? Where do you think that comes from and what shaped that as such a passion for you?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I grew up poor, so I think that's probably a really good place to start. When I was younger, I did a lot of every entrepreneur has the stories about like the lemonade stands. And, I did a lot of that. I'd buy candy at a flea market and then I'd sell it on the bus. And, we lived near a basketball court. And so rather than lemonade, I would just buy like the powdered Gatorade and just set up right outside the court, their men's league. And I remember making a bunch of money like one night doing that, but I split it with like a couple of my cousins and my two siblings. And so I learned the hard lesson then of like, don't partner with people who don't do the work. But, so then I kind of like moved on with life, became a normal kid, went to high school and all that. I was first in my family to go to college, and my undergrad was in sport management, which is like the most useless degree ever. But I went, right? That was kind of the thing. I went. Unfortunately, I lost my mom when I was in my sophomore year of college. And so like kind of had to grow up very quickly. We were already low income to begin with, but then I kind of had to grow up. And so I ended up getting a job in sports marketing, selling cheerleading uniforms. And I was like, man, this is just not cutting. I'm making like 32,000 a year. I moved all the way to Kansas to do it. I'm from the Northeast. I know you're a New England girl yourself. And so moved all the way to Kansas, making like $32,000. And I'm like, this is not going to cut it. Right. And so I just started diving in and started learning. And I remember the first book that actually I read was Tony Robbins' Master the Game or Master the Money Game, I think what it was. And looking back on it now, there's a lot of things I would disagree with that. So if anyone goes out and reads that, like not 100% like the money Bible, but anyone who listens to Tony Robbins gets motivated, right? So like you read the book and you're ready to, just kind of run through a wall. And so that really it sparked a fire in me of like, I already really liked math and people. And that's really what financial planning is it's relationships and a little bit of math. And so I really just went down this road and I started learning and I was diving into books. And one thing led to another, and I was back in school. I got my master's in personal financial planning at Kansas State University. And I haven't really looked back. So I ended up working for another firm on Cape Cod for about 5 years. But I was doing mostly retirement planning. And I was like, that's just boring. Like, I don't even really believe in retirement in the traditional sense. And so eventually I launched my own firm and started working with business owners. So that's kind of the short story of how I fell in love with money. But it's more about people than it is money.
Yeah, I love these stories because, guys, if I just jumped this episode right into wealth building tactics and things for you, I think we would miss out on a huge piece of Justin's story, which is the background that led him where he is and how he developed this passion. Because I think that when you come from like, there's so many different upbringings, and what I want people to take away from that is like, wealth managers don't have to be like born into wealth or have any type of background. Like, there's no profile of someone who's good at managing your money or a financial planner or anything. It's the people who invest in the education and have a passion for serving in that capacity. And I think there's just like this misconception that, oh, well, there's this person over here. They have no idea what I'm going through. They're going to tell me how to manage my money, but they have no idea. Like, I just love talking to people who just shatter that entire thought process and say, nah, I've been there. I've 100% been there. And this is the gateway out of it. That's really empowering.
Yeah, there's a common misconception that making money and managing money are the same skill, but it couldn't be any farther from the truth, right? Managing money is completely different than making money. And so someone who's really good at sales and marketing, they are probably really good at making money. They might also be really good at spending money, which means they're bad at managing money. And so I've heard from people before of like, I would never take advice from someone who doesn't have more money than me. And I'm like, I get it, but someone who makes more money than you might actually have no clue how to manage money. So, you see the TikToks and the reels, et cetera, of like, here's what Warren Buffett does with his money. And it's like, yeah, Warren Buffett's at a phase in his life and with his wealth that one, we're probably never going to achieve no matter how cool you think you are. But two, he's protecting his money. He's not actually growing his money right now. I mean, he is probably growing his money, but that's not his main goal. He's in a protection phase. So he does things a lot differently, right? And so whenever you hear this is what the rich do, that's probably a really bad tip. Like you probably actually don't want to follow that advice. Rich and wealthy are two different things. But, I think it's a really good point that wealth advisors, for the most part, the really good ones are actually more focused on the human being and the individual. And, part of my master's program was financial therapy courses. So Kansas State has a financial therapy curriculum, which is gaining popularity in like the finance and mental health world, but it's not very well known, among individuals because, well, it's not that sexy. But a lot of what I learned about was psychology of money and how that applies and human behavior and some like psychology systems, I guess, based theories and how it applies to humans and how they interact with their money. So it's a lot more than just like dollars and cents and calculators and spreadsheets and all that.
Yeah, and I want to go back to something you said too, which I think is really important that, you know, it's like the TikToks and the gurus on the internet. And I have this phrase I say rich and wealthy, rich versus wealthy is like fit versus healthy. And I
Yeah.
say that is imagine, somebody says, well, this bodybuilder champion, whatever, like if you guys follow fitness, like let's say Kai's doing some crazy shit on the internet on Instagram. And I'm like, good for you, girl. You can do a burpee into a box jump that's like 6 feet high and then do all this other like type of stuff. And it's like the person who has never run a 5K is not doing that. So like
Yeah.
that was not made for you. I mean, obviously move your body, move your money, manage your money, but you don't have to use the same tactics as what you're seeing because they're just at a different level. And again, no judgment, no issue, but know who to compare yourself to or who to pull from when it comes to inspiring yourself around your wealth.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I originally was working with online health and fitness coach. I think that's how you started as well.
Exactly.
And so I started there. So I use a lot of fitness analogies throughout. So I'll probably throw a couple in there today as
Same.
well, because I do think that wealth and like health, they're the exact same thing. You change a couple terminologies, but overall it's a lifelong journey, right? Like there's no end point. You can't get to a point and then just stop and say, hey, I don't want to do these things anymore, because then, you can reverse everything you've achieved. And so, yeah, I totally agree with, health and wealth. The comparisons they're endless.
Yeah, and it's driven by goals, it's driven by customization. So let's talk about that. Like on the edge of that advice conversation, the cookie cutter advice, the always do this, never do this with your money. What are your feelings towards like, business owners especially who want to build wealth and setting the proper goals? I think this is something they really struggle with because they're visionaries. They're thinking, very much like hypothetically or abstractly, and it's very difficult to really bring that into a reality. What are your tips on effective setting of goals when it comes to building wealth?
Yeah, so I think it's really important to one state, like if you're a business owner, your first goal is you do have to make money, because you can't manage money that you're not making. And so I always have to start there, because I have had plenty of people who reach out to me and they're too early in the phase of like, hey, your only goal right now is you just got to go get clients and you've got to make money, right? And so I want to just kind of say that's like a building blocks. And the first one is you do have to make money. So we're going to kind of start in the second phase of, okay, now you're making some money. It doesn't have to be hundreds of $1,000s, but let's say like consistently you're making like 5K a month, right? That's 60 grand a year. That's not a significant amount, but it's enough where you're paying your bills, and now you can start to think about the future. Because essentially when you're talking building wealth, all you're doing is thinking about your future self, right? Like how do you honor that future self? And so you talk about goals, and I actually kind of come at it from a little bit of a different perspective. I'm a big James Clear fan, so Atomic Habits is one of my favorite books. And one of the things he talks about is goals versus systems. And I think goals are helpful in the sense of kind of finding your direction. I kind of refer to it as your vision. And so when I'm starting to work with a client, I'll ask them a lot of questions just to find out, like, one, what direction do you want to go in? Like what do you see in the future? And I'll give you a couple questions that I'll ask clients in the first meeting is like, what does financial success look like to you? What motivates you to be financially successful? I'm going to get so much information from the answer to that question. It, might be children, or I grew up poor, right? A similar story to me. You'll find out so many different things. And then if money weren't a factor, what does your ideal day look like? Those are 3 questions I use with all new clients. And basically what I'm trying to find out is, what direction do we want to go in? I don't care so much about a goal, just need to know what direction we're going in, because then I can help them put systems in place that are very, very simple. So let me kind of give you an example. If someone were to come to you and say, I have a goal of saving $100,000 this year. Cool, that's pretty good, right? But what are you going to do about it? So someone else comes to you and says, hey, I've set up a system where every week I'm putting $2,000 away into an investment account. It's automatically transferring over there from my business bank account. I don't really have a goal, but I'm just going to do that. Who's in a better spot right there? Like, one's taking action because they have a system in place. One's got a goal, and like, if they don't put a system in place, they may not actually achieve that goal. So goals are helpful. It gives you a direction, but I think it's the system that matters the most. And I think a lot of times money is so emotional that if we don't put a system into place and we make decisions in real time without rules in place on what to do with that money, that's a very dangerous game to play.
I agree. I look at it as the why, the what, and the how. And the how is the thing that actually makes a difference. But I think that people will, if you start with the how, right? I do believe that it's good to connect it to some type of vision. Otherwise, you're going to build all these systems to what end? And how do you know you've arrived? And how do you know that you can celebrate yourself every so often, especially as business owners? It's like, set some targets, set some metrics, just to feel like, okay, we come this far. Like, set some barometers to check, like, oh yeah, check on your savings. Like, you can set up that system, but if you never look at it, it's like, yeah, check in on it once in a while and be like, okay, this is how much we've saved. This is our progress towards our goal. That's super helpful. But you're right. Without the how, without the system, the goal is just an idea, a vision, a thought, a wish, without the system.
Yeah. And I think what's kind of helped me get away from having such a clear, defined goal, right? Everyone talks about SMART goals.
Yeah.
And I get that, but I work with a lot of younger business owners, and I'm in my early 30s. Like I said, I just had a baby. I got married a year ago. Life looks so much different now than it did 5 years ago. Life has changed every year significantly. My goals 5 years ago look so much different now. And so I think when you work with younger business owners, knowing, one, that they have unlimited potential and they're going to have unlimited opportunities that come at them every single day over the next 20 to 30, 40, 50 years, is that you actually have to plan for flexibility along with whatever they say their goal is, because that goal is probably going to shift, right?
Yeah.
And so that's one thing that I've learned working with younger business owners is put a system in place that emphasizes flexibility, because I know your vision and your goals, they're going to shift quite a bit over the next couple of years. And so I think that's kind of why I've leaned away too heavy of an emphasis on the actual goal, but more of like, okay, what can we actually do?
Yeah. And what systems can we put in place to serve a variety of goals?
So
because
the very first is, if you're a business owner, you need an operating financial system in your business. Everyone talks about having a marketing system, a sales system, frameworks this, frameworks that. And then nobody talks about money in their business except for, hey, my tax bill's due, right? All about that. And so the very first thing is like, they find out they owe taxes and then they panic and they're like, what do I do? So you can prepare for that, but you can prepare for everything else as well. So if you're sitting here listening to this and you're like, wow, I have like no clue where my money's going anywhere in my business or anywhere, I want to challenge you to take out a piece of paper, take out a pen, open up Canva, create a little flow chart, whatever it is. And just at the top, put like how much money's coming in, right? Or not even how much, but where, like, what's the source of money? Maybe it's one-to-one clients. Maybe it's a group coaching program that you do, whatever it is, like, what's the source? Okay. Where is that money landing when you get paid? I hope it's an online business bank account or a business bank account. We're not going to go too in depth to the taxes and the finances. I know you've covered that a million times on your show, but this is how you're making your money. So we have to start here. So where is that going? It's going to the bank account. Now, where does it go from the bank account, right? Create rules in percentage based systems. So I'm going to kind of ignore like the, okay, save for taxes because that's kind of been covered. But okay, what are you going to pay yourself? Because I think that's a big one that business owners, they don't really think about until like the end of the month. And they're like, okay, I'll just take what's left. We can call it profit. We can call it owner's compensation. But I'm focusing on like a business owner that's kind of solo, maybe has a couple contractors, but doesn't have a partner, doesn't have a lot of employees, right? What are you going to pay yourself? Okay, cool. Now that's going to, don't worry about the business structure, S Corp, LLC, whatever.
Yeah.
Just how much money is going to your personal bank account. Okay. Just draw that out and just visually see how does that flow, because I think that's the very first step, is that most people don't even know how that flows because they don't have a system in place. So if you are that person, you don't know how it flows, draw it up and then maybe hypothetically where it should flow. And then once it flows into your personal account, let's do that again, right? So now in your personal account, you have different personal goals. The business should be very systematic. It should be very methodical. There's not a whole lot of emotion into it. It's really percentage based. Here's what your cost of service is. Here's what I'm paying contractors. Here's what I'm paying myself. You kind of want to remove the emotion from the business side. Then once you pay yourself, now you're a human being, right? You're no longer an entity. You're a human being with dreams and goals and wishes. And so you have to start thinking about, okay, what's my baseline expenses? Which I think this is one that is very challenging for business owners. So when I say baseline expenses, like what do you need to live off of? Just the like very basic, boring life. Your rent, your utilities, your car payments, your student loan payments, whatever it is you have. That's your baseline. You have to start there. If you're not making enough, you have to sprint until you're making that, right? Stop listening to the gurus about hiring. Stop listening to them about, investing in yourself. If you want to invest in yourself, pay your damn rent, right? Like start there. So if you're not making enough to pay your baseline expenses, you have to sprint to that. I believe that wholeheartedly. You have to ignore everything else and just sprint to that number. Once you achieve that, now you have to start building in how are you going to save and invest for your future. And so a common rule of thumb is, say 20% of your income, right? Everyone's different and you have to individualize it, but we'll use 20% for the example here. Where are you going to save that? And so putting a system in place that just automatically takes 20% and either puts it in the bank, puts it into an investment account, puts it into real estate. I'm going to stop there. There's a lot of different options you could go with for investments, but I don't want to get too crazy. Everyone's got their own kind of flavor of what they want. But building it in at the beginning of the month, and then also if you can automate as much as possible, that's a true system, right? You don't have to touch it and it just happens without you knowing about it. That's a really good place to start. I want to stop there because I actually think we went a little too deep to be like already. So I want to stop there. I want to pause.
No,
I think I got going a little too much there, but
yeah, I agree with everything you said, Justin. And I think that one of my mentors has this phrase he says, which is that every dollar has a job description. And that's a healthy way to live. So where every dollar has a purpose. And what I'm hearing you describe is a system whereby every dollar has a mission, has something it will serve. So like if this goes towards rent or this goes towards, and it's not budgeting. And that's what I want to make sure people understand is like, it's not restrictive. It's not meant to be controlling. It's meant to build the system so that things are happening automatically without the emotion and without you having to intervene, think about it, make a decision, or take an action that you may forget. It's really kind of designed to be the out of sight, out of mind behavior that will get you the outcome that you want. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And I think for people, well, nobody likes the word budget, right? Like that's everyone's least favorite word. And I don't blame them. We tend to call the system I was just describing reverse budgeting in my world, but you're exactly right. You want to just kind of plan for everything. And then for those who do find it restrictive, plan for flexibility. Like have money going to I spend it on whatever the hell I want and I don't care bucket, right? And then that's how you get out of that feeling so restricted. And so no, I totally agree with you. And there's a saying that like systems give you freedom. A lot of people think systems are restrictive. But actually, by following a system, you gain freedom to kind of do whatever you want because you've prepared for, all the scenarios.
Yeah, and I think that one of the reasons why money, finances, wealth building are so intimidating for so many people, including those listening right now, is because it seems like this vast area that is unfamiliar and intimidating. And unless you literally spell out what you want them to do, it becomes too much for them to understand, comprehend, and then make decisions based on that feel they all feel very like risky. Like I'm jumping
Mm-hmm.
into a world I don't know the rules to this game, but I'm being asked to play it, right? And you have the rule book, you understand the rules, but if you just said, "Hey, I'm not going to teach you the rule book. Let me just give you the first few moves." Here's what I would do if I had to make my first few moves in this game, and in the process I'll teach you the rule book. But we can't expect they're moving forward in their lives, right? People are trying to build wealth. They're trying to, like you said, sprint to a goal because they're like, hey, I got to pay my rent. I don't got time to read the rule book and like learn all this stuff. And I actually think that's where a lot of professionals do go sideways, is that I'm saying, I know that it depends. I know that we have to educate them, but you can do that in tandem with giving them really good advice on the next moves to make so that they're following good behaviors, even though it may not be the permanent solution. Like you said, goals will change. If you can have a few quick behaviors to implement starting today, if you have nothing in terms of wealth building, savings habits, systems, you've got to find some 2 or 3 things you can implement one habit at a time. Like you said, atomic habits and all of those things. What are the things that you can implement today to start building the system? And it doesn't have to be, let's just kind of address that kind of understanding, that does it have to be this like whole system Justin's describing tomorrow? No, it doesn't,
No,
right?
yeah, no. No, it's got to be, it's got to be simple. Money's not as complicated as we try to make it out to be. Um,
Right.
it's actually, it's a lot simpler than that. So it's got to be simple. It's got to be something you're actually going to follow through on, right? That's really important. There's, in my world, like advisors argue about, do we give clients the perfect solution or do we give them the best solution that they're actually going to follow through on? Like, which one's better? The one
Right.
the client actually does is best. And so you have to balance that. And so I would start with, honestly, not even a couple different habits. I would start with one. Like, what is one habit? If you're not saving money, start saving a little bit. $50 a week, $25 a week. It doesn't have to be, I think we hear big numbers. Well, part of it is we live in a social media world where we compare ourselves to other people that are in different chapters of their lives, and they're also lying to you. They can be, right? Like we
Yeah.
know that everything we see online is not really what it might be. And so, and by the way, I've seen behind the scenes of a lot of coaches actual money situations, and I'm
Same.
telling you right now, and you could probably agree with me, it is
Same.
not what you think it is. It's often the opposite. So stop comparing yourself to other people, right? So get that out of your head. And then if all you can start with is $20 a week, that's fine. Start there. As
Yeah.
things get a little bit better, go to $30, $40, $50, right? You're an online business owner, your potential is uncapped. If you're good at what you do, you're going to have the ability to save more. But if you don't start now at a smaller amount and start building that habit and kind of getting the reps in, when you're making $100,000 a month, you're not going to start saving all of a sudden. People do that, right? That's their mentality, is when I make more money, when I make more money. And it doesn't actually work that way, because the problem is that if you're spending all that money now, you'll keep making a bigger hamster wheel. And so you just have to break the cycle right now. Even if it's a couple dollars a month, break the cycle right now and start saving just in a bank account and start there. And I think one of the biggest challenges, and this is where people, they kind of get mad at me, and I shied away from this early on, but like after a while, you just can't. Stop listening to every online guru that tells you the only way to be successful is invest in yourself and have an abundance mentality. Those are two things that are actually true, but will do more harm than good if you go really extreme on those. So if you're a regular employee and say someone's, your employer agrees to pay you $100,000 a year, and you know there's no way to make any more money. There's no commissions, no bonuses, no nothing. It's a zero sum game, right? Which means you can spend whatever you take home. If you spend more than that, you're going to quote unquote lose. You're going to go into debt. And so you figure out a way to spend, let's say 75,000 after taxes. You figure out a way and you don't spend more. But online business owners don't have that, right? Because they can always say, well, I can make more next year. And they can convince themselves, like, I'm going to make more next year. I'm going to make more in 5 years. So I can kick the can down the road. And that's a really dangerous game to play. And so if you treat it with a little bit of scarcity mindset, I always say you actually have to have some scarcity mindset to build wealth, because that means you are worried about your future. So you're going to plan for it. If you're extremely all the way over here on the continuum of abundance mindset and abundance mentality, you're probably not going to plan for your future at all. And so stop listening to every like guru online who tells you that. And if you do want to invest in yourself, set a budget for it. It doesn't have to be every single dollar goes back into quote unquote investing in yourself. No, set a budget, and maybe like 10% of your profits goes back into acquiring skills rather than like just a general business program. I think that's where a lot of business owners, that's the biggest hole in their bucket, right? If the bucket is their money and there's a hole in it, that's it. Like it's just flowing out. That's my rant. That's where people start to get a little upset with me.
I've seen that too, Justin, and it's an interesting dynamic, because I do believe in the invest in yourself, invest in your skills that will make you more money down the road. But I think that you have to approach those situations, those opportunities, with a really clear intention on ROI. Like, what am I coming in here for? And when I walk away with that, what will that give me? And what am I investing in? Because there's investing in yourself. And I've seen this happen time and time again. And I've mentioned this on the show, talking about mastermind communities and so on, where I say, I agree. I love investing in masterminds. It's a great tool for me, not only because I get some clients out of it, I also learn a ton. I make great connections. Like, it's a no-brainer for me that a mastermind is a great ROI tool. A lot of entrepreneurs will go into these with no intention, no plan, no idea of how they're going to show up. And I have always dedicated myself to say, when I go into this mastermind, I'm going to learn about hiring a team. I'm going to ask everybody in here about their best practices on hiring a team, because that's what I'm going to major in when I'm here. Like, I just decide on my major of like what I want to develop skills in because of the people in the room, and focus on that. And then I walk away with immense value in that is well worth the investment. But I think that people, like I say, you budget, but you also have to, like I said before, with money, you have to put intention behind it. You have to actually show up and make sure you're getting an ROI from that within your control. And I think that we are too, as humans, as business owners, we're too inclined to pour money into something, expecting something back without putting the effort in.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it. And like I kind of opened that rant with, I do believe those, but and I think the way you just framed it was you were looking to acquire a skill. Even though you went to a mastermind, which sometimes masterminds are just marketed as like meet other entrepreneurs,
right?
Which I mean can be very beneficial. You were like, okay, I want to meet other entrepreneurs, but I specifically want to learn how to do X, Y, and Z. Right? You're looking for an actual skill. And the biggest mistake I've seen from business owners is that they're just like, oh, my friend's doing it, so I'm going to pay $20,000 for this program. And they don't really even know what they're looking to get out of it. And they're not paying their bills. So it's really a poor investment overall. That's one of the biggest mistakes I've seen. And I think it's very common in the online fitness and coaching industry.
100%. Totally agree.
And yeah, so I mean, it's tough because I have to balance the two truths, which kind of conflict with each other in my head of like, it can be a really good investment. It can also lead to you overspending and destroying your ability to even get off the ground with this business.
It's like any advice, though. It's like health advice. It's like saying keto's great or intermittent fasting's great. Like there's never a one size fits all magic pill, yes or no, black and white type of answer. And that's what I think that has to come across is like, if you're seeking this advice, understand it's not customized to you. And if you're seeking this advice, when you're getting educated around it, you have to be open to different perspectives and kind of take what you want, leave what you don't. So if you're listening to me and Justin and you're like, I agree with you on this, but I disagree on this, awesome. Because because it's engaging. It's more about the, hey, here are some perspectives that you may not have heard before, but take what you want, leave what you don't, because that's actually the point we're trying to make, is that if you follow the direct advice of certain people on the internet, then you may not be in the position that you want to be in. So you want to make sure you're really taking ownership of your financial future and owning the decisions you're making and the people you're listening to, right?
I agree wholeheartedly. Like there is like almost no one I think that I agree 100% with. Like no one
Same.
should listen to this and be like, I 100% agree with Justin. Like there should be something, because I'm all over the place. So there should be
Yeah.
something you should be able to find. Like I have contradicting beliefs, and that's just the way the world works. I used to be a very black and white thinker growing up. Everything was black and white. And then the older I got, I was like, everything is so gray. Like
Yeah.
everything.
We love
like,
labels. We want to
yeah,
label ourselves and each other as like one or the other, or we just love these labels, man. But it's so much more gray than that.
Yeah, everything's so gray. And so you shouldn't, yeah, you shouldn't agree with everything I say, honestly. I hope you don't, because then you're probably not really paying attention.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Then you're outsourcing your beliefs.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really common with social media. And there's so much good information out there. But what happens is people, they get really popular for one thing and then they start giving advice in other areas. Like, I feel like, I don't know if you've seen this, but like, everyone gives like dating and like relationship advice now. Like I see all these like coaches and consultants, and all of a sudden they're giving like advice like that. And I'm like, what? Like that? Like I will never, if you ever see me on a reel giving relationship advice, like I've been held hostage. Like I need you to come save me, because that's just not what I'm going to do. Maybe parenting, because now I'm a dad, and so that seems to be really relevant for me. But I think that's where you have to be careful, is people start to dive into areas they're really don't know a whole lot about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's really about the proof of, that it's been proven time and time again that what is it? Hormozy says that like you are who you say you are, that you have done it, you have put the work in, you have done the thing, and you have maybe the scars to prove it, and maybe you didn't just get lucky and make a bunch of money. So it's all about really telling the story effectively and making sure that someone can take from it something of value. But yeah, I mean, I'm completely with you on the social media soapbox. I think that we have a completely twisted idea of what it should look like to build wealth right now in today's society because of the exposure we're getting to certain people on the internet. And I think that one of the healthiest things you can do, guys, is mute them. Mm-hmm. Mute them. And listen to people who inspire you, listen to people who give you ideas and maybe not specific actions, which I know sounds so silly for me to say because I love action steps, but when they're giving you the tactics without the conditions or without the call to action to seek out the help of a professional, consider whether that's someone worth listening to. I would seriously start to pick and choose the types of voices that you allow in, because you may not realize the influence they have on you.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember that like they're all experts, but at the end of the day, you're the expert in your own life, right? Like
exactly.
Nobody knows Shannon the way Shannon knows Shannon. Nobody knows Justin the way I know myself. And so I think you really do. You need to remember at the end of the day, like you're unique and not everything's going to apply to you. A lot of what we just talked about is actually why, I've started to really focus on intentional business. Like I really like working with intentional business owners because they have goals and values in mind. They're either like family oriented or health oriented. Like they're willing to build a business that fits their ideal lifestyle. And that doesn't mean they're not growth oriented. I think that gets confused of like, oh, they just don't want to grow. It's like, no, they're growth minded, but they're willing to leave money on the table that does not make sense for them or their lifestyle. And so I've really started to enjoy working with those types of business owners. And I've actually, another advisor and myself, we're launching a community to kind of focus on helping them with financial education, and then just more of like the vision, personal side of supporting those business owners. Because if you go on social media and all you hear is the hustle culture, and I think hustling is fine if there's an intention behind it, but if all you do is you hear all these different like in your face, like grow at all costs type of stories, or the get rich quick schemes, infinite banking concepts and all the tax schemes that I'm sure you hear all the time,
Yeah.
if that's all you're bombarded with all the time, but you don't have a community of individuals that are actually building similar businesses to you that are based on like your life, their lifestyles, their values, their family beliefs, etc., it's really hard eventually to ignore that noise, right? Eventually, you just start to it seeps in you. I even felt like I myself started to like fall for some of the online stuff I was hearing, and finally, I was like, "Whoa, hold on!" Like, I got to step back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was kind of the motivation why we're launching a community to kind of help business owners who are focused on that.
Amazing. How can folks learn more about that when it comes out? Is there like a website they can go to check out your website, your social media?
Yeah, there's a very simple landing page right now where they can just hop on the waiting list. It's called intentionalprofits.co. I kind of look at profits in the sense of it's this umbrella that gives us the freedom to pursue other opportunities in life. And so that's kind of how we came up with the intentional profits name.
I absolutely love that, guys. I'll be recommending that to my clients as well because one of the top questions we get is, when the money leaves the business account, because as a fractional CFO, we're focused on maximizing what's in the business account and what can exit it and owners pay. But then from that point on, that is a story for someone else to tell. So I love passing people on to great people like Justin. Justin, in general, if folks are interested in learning more from you and working with you, where can they find out more?
So you can check out my website, assistfp.com. That's where I work with clients in like a wealth management capacity, financial planning. Also host a podcast. It's going through a rebrand right now. So it's formerly known as Dollars and Dumbbells Podcast, but it's going to be called Intentional Profits here coming up soon. So I don't know when this is airing. I don't know if it's going to have made that transition yet. So look for Dollars and Dumbbells. If you can't find that, look for Intentional Profits, and we'll put the link in the notes. Other than that, Instagram is where I hang out. So Justin Green, FP as in financial planner, pretty much hang out there. You can DM me. Let me know if you have any questions. Love to just connect with people. And I appreciate you having me on, Shannon.
Absolutely. And guys, don't be afraid to reach out to folks like Justin. We love hearing from you guys. I know it's not the most comfortable thing in the world to initiate a conversation with a financial professional, but if Justin's proved anything through this interview, it's that he is super approachable, really cool dude, really friendly. He won't bite, I swear. If you send him a DM, I'm sure he would welcome it. So definitely reach out to him if you have any questions. Justin, thank you for being on the show today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.